Hi there, this is Matt Otto, and for a while now I've been wanting to do a more informal web series where I talk a little bit about what I've been reflecting on in sessions with clients and in my own quiet times. I figured what better time to start than the present when we are gearing up for a new school year and still in the midst of this pandemic and dealing with it and all the anxieties it brings. I don't have a name for this web series yet, so as you listen, if you have any suggestions, let me know. But plan to do it as part of my commute on a pretty regular basis, now that I'm finally commuting again. But the thought for today is just about back to school and all of the hurdles that parents and students and teachers and therapists are experiencing right now. And the word that keeps coming back to me is grace. This is hard, unprecedented time for us. And we have to have grace with ourselves and grace for each other. So, for students, you have got to have grace with yourselves as you go through your lessons. You need to do your best. You need to listen as best as you can. And you need to have grace to realize you're going to zone out sometimes. You're going to feel overwhelmed sometimes. Some of your assignments, a lot of your assignments, are not going to be what you expect to be your best. And you need to have grace with yourself as you go into this school year. You also need to have grace with your teachers. Teachers are working hard to prepare their lessons for you. I see it with my wife. She has been working overtime lately trying to get things together. But she's also drinking through a fire hose trying to absorb all this new knowledge about how to put together these lessons. And so your teachers are going to put some things out that are great, and they're going to put some things out that are bombs. And so you need to have grace with your teachers too. And have grace with your parents. You know, they're going to have days where they snap at you. They're going to have days where they don't do things right. And that's got to be okay, because they're trying to help you through your frustrations and dealing with their own at the same time. So have grace with your parents and give them permission not to be perfect right now. Speaking of parents, likewise, have grace with yourselves. Like I said a minute ago, you are trying to take on the anxieties that you have yourself and the anxiety of your kids right now. And you're going to have those days where you snap. You're going to have those days that you yell. You're going to have those days that you cry. And you need to give yourself permission to take care of yourself in the middle of this. You need to give yourself permission not to be perfect in the middle of all this. And have grace with your kids. They're going to have days where they yell and cry and get upset. And we need to give them the space to do that, and we need to attempt to do it in such a way where we don't pile our own anxieties on top of that by yelling at them or getting overly frustrated with them. This is a whole new set of circumstances for them, and they're feeling overwhelmed just as we are. Give them the grace to make mistakes. Give them the grace to try their best. Give them the grace to hand stuff in late if they need to hand it in late because they're overwhelmed. Give them the grace to get a lower grade than they would normally get when because they're feeling overwhelmed and stressed and can't focus as well as they can. And give your kids' teachers grace too. Like I said earlier, they are trying their best. They are drinking through a fire hose right now. And they do want the best for your kids. I can tell you from experience and talking with lots of teachers, they would rather be in person with your kids right now. But they also understand and have fears about safety of the kids, fears for themselves, fears for the other staff. So they're dealing with these anxieties too and trying to put together the best curriculum that they can for your kids. So have grace with them to make mistakes and put things out that maybe don't seem quite complete or don't seem quite clear, because they're learning it at the same time that they're trying to teach these things to your kids. Which brings me to teachers. Teachers, you are drinking through a fire hose. You are learning these things as you're teaching them. And so it's not going to go out perfectly. The first few weeks in particular are going to have their bumps and bruises, and you're going to put things on your web portals that in a few weeks' time you're going to look back and go, wow, that was raw and a rough draft, and I know so much better how to do it now. And that's okay. Most parents are not going to expect these things to be perfect. Most parents are going to know that this is a learning curve for you too. And you might hear from those handful of frustrated and angry parents, but know that the silent majority is behind you and understanding how hard this is. And give yourself grace to accept the praise of the silent majority, rather than get too caught up in the frustrations of the handful of parents that get overwhelmed. Because let's face it, those parents are getting frustrated at you because they're frustrated and overwhelmed themselves. It's not about the situation. It is about the situation. It's not about you. So, teachers, give yourself some grace, and give your students grace. You know, this is not going to be the year to hold them to the 100% standard. This is going to be the year to let off the gas a little bit on the grades, on the performance, to praise kids for handing things in on time, for praise kids for having the emotional awareness to know when they need to take a break and when they need to not hand things in that are perfect. This is the year to give kids the grace to be imperfect, because they're already kids and dealing with kid hormones and kid issues. And now they have to deal with a pandemic on top of it. And their grades and the way they talk to you and the way that they express these things is not going to be perfect. I'm not saying you don't hold them to standards. I'm not saying you don't want the best for them or want them to try hard. But at the end of the day, they're trying their hardest. May not be the quality of work that we're used to in the past. And have grace with the parents. Like I said, the parents are dealing with holding on to their own emotions and holding on to their kids' emotions. There are going to be days that they come to you angry. There are going to be days that they come to you crying. There are going to be days that they come to you stressed out. And understand that they're dealing with this just like the rest of us are. And give them grace and space to be overwhelmed. And try not to take it personally. And lastly, I just want to talk to my fellow therapists that if you're anything like me, it has been a heavy weight this week to listen to the stresses that the students and parents I work with are experiencing and offer them grace, and then at the end of the day go home and try to do the same thing for my family. And it has been a heavy burden, and my heart has just felt really heavy at times because of it. And the temptation for me is to switch gears, to try to be less emotionally attached, and to try to fix it. Try to say, go to your coping strategies, do this, do that, don't. And we can't do that, because it's important to remind people to use their coping strategies, but we can't completely switch gears into what are you going to do about it? Because the truth is, for 99% of the people we work with, there is nothing they can do about it. We are in the middle of a pandemic. There are minor choices they can make that might make things easier or harder, but in general, it's just about figuring out how to get through it. And so we need to normalize that struggle for the people that we're working with, and offer them grace in the 45 or 50 minutes that they have with us, rather than trying to fix it, rather than trying to offer solutions, rather than trying to say, oh, well, let's do this coping strategy or let's practice this breathing exercise. Because frankly, those things feel trite for a lot of people right now. Yes, we need to encourage them to be taking care of themselves. Yes, we need to encourage them to do those things that a lot of them already know they need to do in order to cope. But our ultimate responsibility, I feel right now, is to offer them the grace of knowing that they are not the only ones going through this, that they don't have to do this perfectly, and that we are there for them to help prop them up and give them support as they go through it. So that's just my 2 cents as we start the school year. Offer yourself grace. Offer the people around you grace. Thank you for listening, and we will touch base again soon.